This conference will now be recorded.
That's right. All right. So, let's see. Next things here. Let me go down my list. All right. Okay, let's get started. All right, so we have Dave here. Dave, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in just a moment. But my role here is I'm going to try to facilitate things as much as I can, as much as this kind of chaotic format kind of allows. I will occasionally mute people whenever they have a dog barking or train going by, that kind of thing. And I'm gonna keep my eye on the chat, and I might interrupt here and there if some questions kind of pop up. But what I want to do that's a little bit different than the last one that we did. I'd like to hear a little bit more from everybody else. So if you do have a question at any point, you can just write in the chat like I have a question or something like that, or you can write out your question, but then I'm gonna like call on you and then let you ask the question rather than me. And then the other thing is if you're comfortable with it, everyone, if you can show your face, this is a completely different experience when you're talking to little initials as opposed to talking to people's faces. It just doesn't feel real whenever nobody's there. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to you, Dave. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. And yes, please. I want to see your faces. It's actually for this session, it's quite important that you have your cameras on. Really want you to join in. One of the things that it does is I want to see you guys. I want to see your response because that helps give me the energy to keep going. So it's a very important thing for me. Plus, I'll be asking you to share some stuff as we go. So please, please on with those cameras. We've got Mark at the moment. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? And we've got waiting for name. Apparently, it says waiting for name. Hello, waiting for name. Lovely to see you. Good to see you, Shane. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, nice beard. Liking that. I've just got rid of a whole bunch of fur on my face today, but I've nowhere near where you are. That's a fine collection here, sir.
Thank you.
Right. So Ciao Perez. How are you doing, Captain? Good to see you. I'll be asking for you to play your guitar in the background there later on. That'd be lovely. Marissa, lovely to see you. So I'm going to share my application here. This should work. And hopefully now you should be able to see my PowerPoint presentation there. And I should put this up here so I can see you all. Right. What I want to talk about today is experimenting. I am a really big fan of experimenting. I do a lot of experiments, and I want to share some of them with you today. And I'm hoping that we can actually do some experimenting together as well. So that's kind of what this is about. So let me go over here and then I can control this. So hello, I'm Dave. As you can tell, I'm not from Ohio, not natively. I've got to be honest with you. I've actually not visited Ohio. It's on my list, but there we go. Thank you all for coming. I'm an author of a number of books. This is my last book that I published here, How to Get to Great Ideas. But I know you've all read that already. I don't need to promote that. And I've got a bunch of other books as well. So you guys, in the comments, can you just tap in? Actually, just let me know. I can see your names there, but where you're from. Are you all from Ohio, or are you from different parts? Tap in where you're from. Be lovely. Okay, Dayton, Brazil. Hey, fantastic. Thanks, Joe, for coming in. Columbus, North Star, Columbus, great. So the Columbus contingent here is heavy. The Columbus massive is in the house, and thank you for coming along. So I want you guys to get involved. This is great, Jonathan. I can see right into your beard from here. Your tools for today, because I want you to get involved here. Pen and paper. I'm hoping that you'll have a pen and paper. If you don't, I'll give you I'll give you a second to go and get it. A toothbrush. I'll give you a second to run and get a toothbrush. Hold on, not just yet, Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan, what are you doing? I didn't say go yet. I'm not finished my list. And some booze, because it is after lunchtime for you, and it's 6 o'clock at night for me. And this will actually, there will be a reason for this. So if you're up for it, get some booze if that's your thing. If not, then don't worry. So Jonathan, you can go now. That's your 3 things: pen and paper, toothbrush, and some booze. I'll give you a minute to go and do that, and I will just, unless you've all got booze on your desk already, I don't know. I think Mark has headed out to the shops to go and buy himself a keg, and Shane as well. So for the rest of you, I assume you've got everything. Mark, did you just go to the shops there? Did you? Oh, you got your toothbrush. Nice. That was the thing that was hardest to get. Great. So let's kick this off. Let's get on with it. Here we go. I think that right now, what we're in right now with the pandemic is an incredible opportunity to do more experiments. It's forcing companies to experiment, to see what's working, to see what isn't working. So to me, I'm working with some companies at the moment and encouraging them to just be open to that, because this is the chance. At the moment, they've done the oh crap bit at the beginning, which is like, what are we going to do? We need to save our company. And we kind of like moved into this new phase where we've had a few months of dealing with it. And now really is the time that we should be looking at innovation, actually how we get out of this, how you get a competitive advantage, because this is a really prime time to be able to get a competitive advantage. This is the time that ideas should thrive and flourish. So I'm a big fan of that. I've had to pivot. I've had to do experiments myself, because the way that I earned my money pre-pandemic is public speaking. So this year I was already, by now, I was supposed to have been in California, Florida, New York, Austria, Turkey, India, China, and a couple of other places. And obviously that hasn't happened. So everything just disappeared. I had thousands of pounds worth of speaking gigs lined up, thousands of pounds worth of training lined up, some consulting stuff that was in conversations, and in the space of 10 days, it all disappeared. And I went from having thousands of pounds worth of work that was going to see me through the next few months beautifully. It looked as if it was going to be the best year that I was having for quite a while. Ended up with an income of zero, absolutely nothing. It all disappeared from my diary and I ended up with nothing whatsoever. And I know that for some of you, you probably found something pretty similar. When you're doing creative stuff, a lot of the creative industries were really heavily impacted. And so I know what it's like. So for me, it was very much that I had to find a new way of doing things. I had to experiment, I had to pivot. And through some of my experiments, I've been doing things with online training and online workshops. And I've ended up actually now coming out of this with more work than I know what to do with. And I don't know how I can handle it all at the moment, because I found that I did a course for LinkedIn Learning, which is for online workshops. So I've got five LinkedIn Learning courses. If any of you have got access to LinkedIn Learning, I've got 5 courses up there, and one that's proved to be very popular since it was released about 3 weeks ago, is how to do online workshops. Do any of you ever, I'm looking for nods, thumbs up, thumbs down, so I get an idea. Have any of you been impacted by the pandemic, sort of work-wise? Give me nods if you've been impacted. Okay, right, most of you then. Do any of you do online workshops? Give me a thumbs up if you do online workshops, thumbs down if you don't do any of that kind of stuff. So there's a kind of mix here. Okay, that's fine. So LinkedIn Learning, anyway, you can find my stuff there if you're interested. Right here, the first experiment. Let's talk about this. You've got pen and paper. I am going to give you 2 minutes. In fact, it's actually about 90 seconds, to be honest, to draw a self-portrait. So here we go. Are you all ready? You've got your pen, you've got your paper. Shane, you're ready. You've got your pen up there. I like that. Here we go. I'm going to play some music while we do this. Okay, so that's your time up. So put your pens down. Let me see. I will share what I did with my right hand in preparation for this. So I did this here. This was a 90-second portrait. So hold up your portrait. Let me see how you're getting on. Oh, there's some beauties here. Oh yes. Oh yes, I'm liking this. Good. Faith, you've just got a blank sheet there, it looks like. I can't see your picture. Great, great. So what I now want you to do is I want you to do it again, but I want you to do it with your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed. So I would have to do it with my left hand. So I want you to do in 90 seconds again, draw a self-portrait with your non-dominant hand. You're going to go for it again. Are you all ready? Yes? We're all good? Right, here we go. Okay, now that should be about all the time you need to do a left-handed portrait. So that was my right-handed portrait right there. And this is my left-handed portrait. You know, it's not quite as good, but this is kind of, well. So I want you guys to share your left-handed portraits here. Oh, Mark, you went a lot bigger that time. That's sure, that's fantastic. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, brilliant, Faith. That's beautiful. That's great. Oh man, Jonathan, that is just how. Geez, do you do that all the time? Are you just sort of you just use both hands equally? That's phenomenal. So I wanted to see. I did an experiment a few years ago, and I was in Serbia, and there was a chap there. We would just get this thing that we wanted to do experiments, and we were drinking one night in Belgrade, and we're discussing how we wanted to see if we could pick up a new skill in a month. So we wanted to see if we could teach our non-dominant hands to draw in a month, and we wanted to look at the whole thing and document it. So we decided to do an experiment together where we would draw a self-portrait every single day for a month with our non-dominant hands. And all of you have proved that your non-dominant hands are a heck of a lot better than mine was when I started this experiment. So we call this the cack-handed drawing experiment, drawing with the wrong hand. So this is a little film of me doing one of these. So I was using no pencil guides here, just going straight in. You can see lots of wobbly lines. And one of the strange things that I found was doing circles. Because I'm used to it, if I draw a circle with my right hand, I draw anti-clockwise. So I was trying to draw anti-clockwise with my left hand, and it would always go wrong. It would always make a mess. And I realized, everything's mirrored. I have to do my curves the opposite way I would normally do it. And then they worked out perfectly, which was really weird. But getting your mind around that is one of the sort of hurdles at the beginning. So this is about 2 weeks in, and you can see at this point, I'm actually getting confident enough to start putting in shading and things like that. So it's no longer just doing a rough drawing anymore. So this drawing would take me about half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And, you know, but it didn't start off this good. So this was day one. This is my friend Rhea on the left. And I don't know who that is on the right. It looks as if it might be someone related to me who has also just done an experiment to see how many McDonald's they could eat in a month. The previous months, it's not me. I don't know who that is. So I wasn't very good, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be terrible. So that was day one for me. Day two, it's like, oh, hold on a second. This isn't as bad as I thought. Day three, it's like, jeepers. I had no idea that I would be able to do that with my my left hand. Then it got worse because it has to do that before it gets better again. So we start to work our way through, start experimenting with shading just after a week, trying to get new angles and doing stuff. You know, I've got a picture of myself on my phone, so trying to get interesting angles. I was lazy this day. Look at that. I don't have to bother with hair, so that was a nice, easy one. That was the one you've just seen. And you can see some of them, it went through a certain point there where it was actually all right. And then some of them go a little bit awry again. I don't know who that guy is. He's a dentist anyway. Oh, wow, I don't know who that was a terrible day. But Rhea started to do some interesting stuff with his shading. So we started to get into this using pencil as well as pen in our shading. Look at this, day 26. Rhea did some amazing stuff there. I thought it was fantastic. I thought Rhea's here, day 29, is absolutely phenomenal. This is him, he's left-handed, this is him drawing with his right hand. And Rhea seemed to give up there 2 days before the end. And what we worked out was that in Serbia, the month of June has only got 29 days in it. That was his excuse. I'll need to research that one, I think. So certainly I wasn't delighted with my last one, but it shows a change in standard anyway, going from day one to the last day. You know, especially look at Rhea's. Look at that. I mean, it was still a good sketch at the beginning, but wow, his last sketch is phenomenal. So this is the kind of experiments that I'll do. So a self-portrait every single day for a month. So let me tell you about another experiment here. But you guys, again, you need your pen and paper again here. I'm going to give you 90 seconds to come up with uses for an object. You might have seen this before. It's called the multiple uses test. It's a way of measuring creative thinking. And it measures it in different ways. So it measures it on how many suggestions you come up with, how you expand on that, so how expansive your suggestion is, how many domains that you explore while you're coming up with ideas, and how original your idea is. So let's give this a shot. I want you to pump up the volume here, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be incredibly unpleasant for the next 90 seconds, but it's actually part of the experiment. And I give you some music for this. There's music in the background here. It's my favorite music. It's 6 tracks of my favorite music all playing at once. Here we go. Get ready. I'm going to show you an object, and you have to come up with as many ideas as you can in 90 seconds. Here we go. Skateboard. Here we go. So, right, I think you're idiots. You're not going to come up with anything good. Come on. Come on. I don't see you writing. Write faster. Come on. Like the music? Made it especially for you. Hope you like it. Add it to iTunes. Come on. Are these even any good, your suggestions? It's probably just rubbish. Come on. Come on. Faster, 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 faster. Come on. Hope you impress me here. Don't want to be disappointed. Oh, come on. Yep. I mean, I was hoping there'd be a smarter bunch on here today. It's a bit of a disappointing turnout today. Really? Come on, I think your last suggestion there was probably rubbish. You should be embarrassed with yourself. This is dreadful. Yeah. Hope you're enjoying the music. You can sing along if you want. Nearly done there. Just about running out of time. Come on, faster, faster. What have you got there? Those of you who are hiding, I guess you're hiding for a reason. You're hiding out of embarrassment. There we go. Right, okay, you can stop. You can stop, and I'll be nice now. So, how many did you get there? Okay, so we got 6 there from Matt, 4 from Marissa. Okay, we get 8 there from Mark, 9 from Mark. Okay, 7, 5. Okay. So we're going to do this again, but before we do this, I think we just want to take some breaths. Just calm down a little bit. So I want you to follow what this is, a guided breath thing here. I'm going to count to 4. You're going to breathe in through your nose for 4. You're going to hold it for 7, and then you're going to exhale for 8. So 4, 7, 8. Nose, hold, mouth. Here we go. Okay. So you're going to breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release for 8, 2, 3. Through your mouth. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In through your nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that is a breathing exercise that's is known to reduce your heart rate, even bring down your blood pressure. So it's a very calming, meditative breathing technique. So hopefully you're a little bit more chilled now after listening to that beautiful music. Came up with ideas. We're going to do this exercise again, and hopefully some nicer music this time. Taking a few breaths. Are you ready for your next go around? Here we go. A saw. Okay, we'll get 90 seconds. Okay, stop what you're on just now. So give me a thumbs up if you got more second time around than you did first time around. Yeah, generally? No? Did any of you just get the same amount? Who got less second time around? Interesting. Whoa, what went on there? Right, you guys have totally screwed up the experiment. I don't know what happened there. Right, let me explain. I did an experiment last year, and there's an advertising agency in Manchester in the UK, and this is outside the agency. The agency is almost a castle with grounds around it, and it's beautiful. People can go outside and work, like you can see here. And I did this exact same experiment on them, where I got two groups, and this group here that I had, we did this in a totally chilled environment, sitting outside a greenhouse. Now this is amazing. This agency grows its own food for people to have at lunch. It's phenomenal, just beautiful. So we did this very chilled, and then there was another group here that were in this hot little cramped room. They had to put the chairs out themselves. There was somebody drilling through the wall while they were doing it, and people cutting the grass outside. There was a woman shouting at them while they were doing the experiment. And we wanted to see the effect that being relaxed had on coming up with ideas. And this experiment we did, the one I'm showing you, worked. The one we've just done didn't. But, you know, I mean, I guess it worked, but it didn't give the results that I was hoping for. So we found that the group that were unstressed, incredibly, that they performed 19.3% better when we looked at the metrics. They explored more domains, more different idea areas. They came up with more ideas. They expanded on their ideas more. And it was statistically significant, the difference. So I've got a documentary that I'm sort of going to be editing over the next couple of months to sort of show this experiment a little bit more. So it's just one of my experiments I wanted to test out. What's it like being relaxed on ideas? In the UK, it's good for ideas, but clearly, particularly with a male skew in Ohio, you guys need more stress. So that's fine. I can give you my music playlist, and each time you need to come up with ideas, you can listen to the beautiful music that I've given you while sitting on a traffic island in a busy highway. I want to tell you about another experiment, experiment 3. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just now for this, because I just want to tell you a story. I read someplace nearly 20 years ago that breaking our habits was a great way of improving our creativity. So I thought that I would do that as an experiment. And I took it to the extreme. And this is an experiment that didn't work. And what I did was I would try and do everything different all the time, break down all those little patterns. And in the morning, I'd wake up and I'd try and get out of bed in a different way. So maybe sort of rolling onto my front and trying to slide feet first out of the covers, or trying to put a hand down on the floor before I put my feet down. And I try and if you get your toothbrush just now, this is what I wanted your toothbrush for. Do you brush your teeth in exactly the same way every time you do it? Do you automatically go and start in the same place? I kind of do now. I start at the back here, and do this outsides of my top teeth before I, move on to the insides and the different, So we end up doing lots of things that we don't even think about. So when I asked you do you brush your teeth in the same way every day? I could see that most of you were like, you don't even know where you start because it is so automatic, and it's amazing. So I would break this down. I'd try and brush my teeth in a different order every day. I'd put my clothes on in a different order, but always trousers before underpants. I didn't want the superhero look. I didn't feel it was my thing. I just can't pull it off. And then I would try and find a different way to work, and I would break everything down. And I realized about 6 months into this experiment that I'd broken myself. And I was standing in my kitchen wanting to make a coffee. I was standing there going, right, how to make a coffee? And nothing was automatic anymore. I'd broken everything down. A spoon. So I had to look through all the drawers because nothing was automatic. I had to find where the spoons were. It's my kitchen. I should know that. So got a spoon. What else do I need? A mug. Okay, so went through the cupboards, found a mug. What else do I need? Coffee. Okay, so I'll get the coffee. Milk. Get the milk. And then at that point, I realized that the thing I should have done first, putting the kettle on, was the thing I'd completely forgotten. So I realized it was taking me so long to do things that it was becoming really hard to live my life. Everything was so conscious. It required so much effort, and it was making my life quite difficult. Hold on, I've got somebody, excuse me, come here please. I've got somebody who always crashes my videos and wants to say hello to you all. Are you going to very quickly wave, say hello, and then you can go back down and play, all right? Good girl, okay. Sorry about that. So I discovered that I had broken my brain in this way. Everything was requiring so much effort. So I realized I had to start putting some of these clusters together again, because my life had become so slow that I didn't have as much time to spend on coming up with ideas. And I also hadn't really noticed any great uptake in the kind of ideas I was coming up with. So the experiment, my hypothesis, was proven wrong. And it took me at least a year and a half, so 6 months to break my brain, at least a year and a half to actually be back in some kind of state where I'd built these patterns up again, because they'd been building up through my whole life up until that point. I broke them all down, and then I had to start building them up again. So I was working at an advertising agency called Ogilvy many years later, and I was creative director at the agency. And I was speaking to the chairman one day. We were having lunch, and I told him this story. And I just said, Dave, you are an idiot. Do you not know that a measure of a man's intelligence is how many things he can do without thinking? So, oh, no, actually, no, I didn't know that. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But what I learned was that I'd kind of misinterpreted this. It's not about breaking down all those patterns. the change that you need is in what you put into your head. Your brain is a processor, and a lot of creative people believe that coming up with ideas is all about talent. It's all about the wiring they have in their head. It's all about the processes they use. And I think that that's a mistake. I think if you ask anyone who deals with data, they use the term garbage in, garbage out. Your input affects your output more than the processing does. So if you want to be able to come up with ideas that no one else can come up with, you need to have things going into your head that no one else has going into theirs. And that's how you get an unfair advantage, is by spotting things that other people don't spot, seeing things in different ways. So from this experiment, I learned the importance of not breaking your patterns down necessarily, but broadening your input. So that's kind of the lesson that I learned from this one, from a failed experiment. So let me tell you about more of these things. Here's experiment 4. Give me a wave if you like David Bowie. Are any of you sort of David Bowie fans? There's a few there, right? I'm a big fan of David Bowie, and one of the things that he used to do was writing lyrics. I mean, apart from taking a heck of a lot of drugs, in the 70s, one of the things that he was very big on for his writing lyrics was doing what we called cut-ups. It was something that a lot of the beat poets would do back in the day, and he adopted this as one of his ways of doing this. And this is him talking about it here.
When we were in Los Angeles in '74, you were still using that technique of cut-ups. Do you still use it, or do you do? Yeah. Increasingly so, to a great extent on Outside. Even say on the new album, Earthling, if you put 3 or 4 disassociated ideas together and created awkward relationships with them, the unconscious intelligence that comes from those pairings is really quite startling sometimes, quite provocative. A friend of mine in San Francisco developed a program for me on the computer, which enables me to do it really quickly. So instead of going through the laborious process of cutting things up, you use your computer. Yeah, and you can work with far more material. So I'll take articles out of newspapers, poems that I've written, pieces of other people's books, and put them all into this little warehouse of this container of information. And
so I decided that I would try and do this as well. So what I did was I wrote 3 pages using different subjects here. So this is I wrote one here about commuting. I wrote one about having a broken heart, and I think the other one was about clouds. And let me sort of skip through the video as we do this. And then once I've finished all of those, I then started to cut them up into little chunks, doing exactly what David Bowie was describing. And then with those chunks, I started to compile them a little bit like fridge magnet poetry, if any of you have got that on your fridge. And then I've turned these into lyrics. So one of the experiments that I've yet to finish is I now need to write the music for this and create a song using Bowie's cut-up experiments here for creating the lyrics. And I've got to say that the lyrics I'm really disappointed with. But I think once they get put to music, they might be a little bit better. But it was a really interesting experiment to do. And I think that it's worth us, if we are coming up with ideas in our day jobs. You know, for 20 years, I was an advertising creative and ended up being creative director of a bunch of big agencies in London. But one of the things that I think since then, I think I'm far better now than I was then, because I've experimented so much more with different ways of coming up with ideas. And it's something that I wish I had done when I was working as an advertising creative. With this being part of my job, I think I would have improved my creative output if I'd experimented more with different ways of doing it. And this is just a technique that I think can be really, really helpful. And there's so many tools out there. And actually on my website, davebirss.com, it's just my name.com, and my name is a strange name, as you can see there. There's only 4 Dave Birsses in the world apparently, and I own Twitter. I've beaten the other 3, so I'm very Googleable. But if you just put .com at the end of my name, you'll find there's some tools on my site that I've built. And I'm a big fan of what Matt does. So when Matt has created his cards, I think they are brilliant ways of nudging your thinking out of your typical ruts. And very much like what David Bowie did here, where you start to create clashes of different things. And those clashes, because you've not tried to pair those things together before, it forces your mind into a different wiring. So you're not going down the typical wiring of your brain. It forces you to think in different ways. So I've got tools that use a similar kind of thing, but I love Matt's cards. I use Matt's cards. He knows I'm a fan of these. So I think that prompting, anything that can prompt our brains to create a new connection is going to give us ideas we wouldn't normally come up with. And you can either do that using cards or tools or techniques like this. And it's something that I recommend that you do. Expand your repertoire of creative exercises and find ways of forcing your brain to make fresh connections it hasn't made before. That's when things get exciting, and you actually get a little rush, a little dopamine rush of pleasure when you do that as well, or endorphins, I think it is actually. So I highly recommend that. Please expand your creative repertoire. Experiment 5. It goes on. There's more experiments. We're not finished yet, and you guys aren't finished yet either. So experiment 5. So at this point, if any of you've got booze, then I'm going to open my beer bottle just now. Please feel free to join me. Good. So I know it might be a little bit early for some of you, but you know, it is. It's nearly 7 p.m. for me here, so it's absolutely fine. Plus, I'm Scottish. I've got an extra gland in here which just deals with it. And so, what this experiment was about was I was talking to a creative director, another advertising creative director, and we were talking about how in the old days, when we were working in the sort of 80s and 90s. I started in the sort of the very beginning of the 90s, so I'm an old man. We were talking about how in those days, what creatives would very often do is we would get in the morning, not necessarily bang on time. We'd start working on our briefs, have a few meetings, work on our briefs, and then at lunchtime we would go off to the pub, and then sometimes we'd come back. It's good stuff. So we would come up with ideas. We felt that there was better ideas that we came up with, and we wanted to see, does alcohol actually help with creative thinking? Now, put your hand up if you think that alcohol helps with creative thinking. Okay, Marissa's definitely in there. Some of you are like, Jonathan's like, not sure. Mark's like, not sure. I'll play this film. Here's how it works. We have 18 advertising creatives. We split them into 2 teams. One team is allowed to drink as much alcohol as they want. The other team has to remain sober. They each have 3 hours to work on the same brief. Then we take their work and we get it judged by top advertising creative directors. Then for a second opinion, we put their work to the public to see what they think. And just for the sake of irony, the problem we're trying to solve tonight is binge drinking.
Touch your nose. We both had at the same time, touch your nose, that's all the other.
So we did this experiment, And I mean, apart from there was a couple of girls on the alcohol team that we had to send home halfway through when we found one of them asleep behind the settee. But it was extraordinary. We got people to write the time they came up with the ideas down, and we found that the alcohol team, even when a couple of people ended up dropping out halfway through, the alcohol team came up with more ideas. They came up with ideas more consistently throughout the night. But most importantly, when we got those ideas judged, the alcohol team came up with 4 out of the 5 top ideas. And these were judged by the public, they were judged by creative directors in an advertising awards. And we were kind of blown away with the results. So there's talk of us doing it again in Colorado with smoking materials. We might do, I don't know. We'll see. So I thought maybe we could do a little experiment just now. I'll put my beer down. I like to do experiments that we can maybe get something out of here. So this, I don't know if you can see this very clearly or if it's too jolty with the video. I did this when I did a talk at a college, and I just got the front row to all take a picture of me with their mobiles, and then send me the pictures just to see if it'd be able to make it look any good. So I found that we can kind of do this ham-fisted bullet time thing where everyone took the picture at the same time. And I thought maybe we'd try something today that I would like you guys to do some screen grabs of me and then email the screen grabs. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make some faces, and if you guys can do screen grabs as we go, I'll then give you my email address to send the screen grabs to afterwards, and then I'm going to see if I can do a face dance using different expressions. So I'm going to try and keep my head in the same place. I'm going to switch off the screen here. So if you have got the view where you can have me as the main part of the screen, that would be handy for this. I'm going to get my face nice and big here, and then get ready to do screen grabs when I do different facial expressions. So you'll know what to do at the right time. Here we go. All right, should have a bunch of screen grabs there, hopefully. I'll share my screen again, and what I'm going to try to do, not right now, obviously, because it's going to be hard opening up Final Cut Pro and putting these things together. But I want you to email these screen grabs. So you might want to screen grab that as well. That's my email address. I want you to email the screen grabs after the session to me here, and I'm going to see if I can patch them together with a little bit of music and see if I can make my face dance in some kind of amusing, pointless way. But I just want to see if this is going to work, because I don't know if it will. And then whatever I do, whether it's any good or whether it's an embarrassing heap of nonsense, I will send it to Matt, and he can do with it what he wants. Because Matt is the expert filmmaker here, not me. So I want to encourage you, as we sort of start to reach the end here, I want to encourage you to come up with your own experiments. So this is how I recommend you do it, is that you find a question that you want answered. It might be a question about just a personal thing, or it might be about work. It might be even about relationships or whatever, you know, just find a question that you want answered and create a hypothesis. So you write down your hypothesis just like you were taught to do at school in science class. You write down your hypothesis and then design an experiment that's measurable for this hypothesis, so that you can test it, see if it works or not, and document the results. Because if you're doing something like this, it's great if you can share it. If you're going to learn something, share it with other people. Document your results. Yeah, and then share it. Share what you've learned. And I want to see what you create, because if you've got an idea for an experiment, please email me. Let me know what you're up to. I might even join you in the experiment. I'm up for a bit of fun. So let me know what you think you might do as an experiment, and I will see if I can hold you accountable to actually make it happen. Can you learn to draw with your foot? I don't know. I might actually try that one, actually. Could I teach myself to play guitar left-handed? I don't know. Maybe I start with ukulele. That might be one. Be interesting to see what I can do there. But we have got a few minutes left, and I thought with those few minutes left that I would take questions. If any of you get any questions or anything you want to ask, or you just want to make a comment and just say, no, you really were an idiot doing that experiment, please, I would love it if someone could unmute and break into this silence with a comment or a question, so that it's not just embarrassing for all of us. I've got my beer. I'll just drink my beer until someone says something.
All right.
Oh,
I got something for you. Wait, somebody else?
great.
Okay. Obviously, this idea of creativity is something that's super fascinating to me. I'm curious what you think that, I guess, the role of fear plays when it comes to creativity.
It is almost, it's kryptonite. And fear comes in so many different ways. So we've got personal fear. So a lot of people, when they're doing personal projects, have got this thing that they don't want to publicly commit to something and then fail and look like an idiot. That's going to stop you. That's a terrible fear to have, and it's one that we just need to get over. We get fear of what others are going to think of us. Once we're in a workplace, we fear that we might say something that will mean that we won't get that promotion, or that staff are going to, the people we're with every day are going to think of us in a different light, or whatever. So fear is probably the biggest problem with creative thinking. So one of the things that I do is, when I'm doing workshops, I create sessions that basically give people permission to say the things that they feel that they wouldn't normally be able to say. So when you put people in a different situation, you see, we are conditioned. We are animals that can be conditioned. And when we're in a workplace, we become conditioned to the way that workplace works. And that means that if we're in a corporate environment, then we take on all the assumptions, all the processes, all the fears, all the ways of doing things, all the hierarchical structure. And that affects the way our brains work, because the way that our brains work isn't just what happens inside our skulls, it's everything around us. I come up with different ideas if I'm at home than I do if I'm in a coffee shop, than I do if I'm working for a client in some corporate banking scenario. The environment that you're in affects your brain. The social situation that you're in affects your brain. And fear is the thing that you just have to get over. And sometimes you just have to go, oh, bugger it, I'm just going to do it. And I think that that's one of the things that marks out the people who are the creative doers from those who are creative wannabes, is that the creative doers, they first of all, they fill their mind with good stuff, but the second thing is they do stuff whether or not they're getting paid for it. They've just got an output, constantly producing, and fear blocks that. So yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, Matt.
Thanks.
Anyone
I can
else?
keep going, but let's see. Anybody else have something?
What's your favorite Bowie album?
Oh man, I love the albums that he did in Berlin in the 70s. So Breaking Glass, I think, as a song is one that just absolutely gets me. The Heroes album was brilliant as well. I chop and change, but generally for me, Bowie, the 70s, before he became super commercial in the 80s, is where I am with Bowie, and then a little bit of resurgence in the 90s. What about you? What's your favorite album, Faith?
Heathen.
Which one?
Heathen.
All right.
I think
Okay.
that was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I go through phases where I just listen to a lot of Bowie and then move on to Nick Cave or some old blues or whatever. It's always good to have these binge phases, I think.
All right, Dave, what's the difference between UK and the US when it comes to creative thinking?
That's very interesting. I can tell you in companies is that I think that corporate culture, I have found it affects people in the US a lot more than it does in the UK, particularly in creative industries. So I've done, my wife is a New Yorker, so I spent a lot of time in New York, San Francisco, LA, and working with agencies and production companies and digital businesses. And I find that there is more of a likelihood for people to try and be polite and hold their tongue. And I think that that can be a problem, because when you don't feel that you're free to speak your mind, it means that you're not free to say these sparks of ideas that might just set someone else off on another path. And I think that safeness is a problem. It's another form of fear. But on the other hand, I think that the UK has its different problems. I mean, it's got so much history that holds it back. And I think that it's different in different industries. The thing that just always gets me as a problem is when any company falls into a rut and any person lets their thinking fall into a rut. At that problem, I just think it's desperately sad, because you've basically switched your mind off, and you've got doing and you've got thinking. And I think there's too much of an emphasis on doing in business, in jobs. And I think that thinking is what gives us value as employees and gives value to companies. So that's what I try to teach, is the thinking bit, because doing, I think, you're just an automaton. You're there in a job that's just ready to be automated, taken over by a bot. If your job does not require thinking, your job will not exist in 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I always go back to is, especially when it comes to comedy, and I'm always like, I don't know, that British humor I think is weird sometimes, but I'm like, it's always been ahead of its time. Like you go to Monty Python and you're like,
Yeah.
the people here had to have been like, what the hell is this? And just like, whatever. But like now, a lot of people here love it, and it's like it I don't know, it always does seem to be that way. Where, and I guess I wonder again, when it comes to fear, is like, are people in the UK just less afraid of what people think, or is it something else?
There's always been a cultural thing of there being that nonsense that comes with that. And I think in the UK, there's always been an acceptance of that kind of level of complete bizarre stupidity. And I think that wasn't accepted by US culture for a long time. Canada accepted it far sooner. So we had Kids in the Hall coming from Canada, Wayne's World, all of that stuff. And I work with a lot of comedians and improv folk. And I was a stand-up comedian at one point, and that I got offered I got offered my first TV show as a comedian the same week that I got offered my first job in advertising, and I took advertising. I turned down the TV show and took advertising.
Do you regret that?
No, not in any way. I've done a TV show since, but you know, and I'm in talks about other ones, but yeah, I don't regret it at all. I get into comedy by mistake. Had some fun, and then get out at the right time. Yeah, but it's interesting. I think different sense of humors I find really interesting, because that is the essence of the culture to me. And there's a phrase that the ancient Greeks used to say. They used to say that wit is the highest form of intelligence, and I believe that. I really do. That when you look at people like Trevor Noah, who I think that his way of looking at the world is extraordinary, that he can distill it down to an essence. I just think that that is amazing, and there's so many great comedians, and Chris Rock is brilliant at this as well. Just being able to distill something down and just show you clearly what something is. I think that that form of intelligence is phenomenal, and to be able to do that with wit is just they're modern philosophers to me, taking on the same role.
So I guess I have one more question here. It is, I guess the argument that a lot of people would think but probably not say to you is that they would say, like, you know, maybe I am creative, but like I'm too introverted to be that creative. What do you say to something like that?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to do with being introverted or extroverted. I think that in corporate land, people have fallen for brainstorms and think that brainstorms are the manifestation of creativity in the workplace. Brainstorms are awful. I think we should only ever use the abbreviation, which is BS, because that is exactly what they are. So brainstorms were invented in 1942 by Alex Osborne, who's the O of the BBDO advertising network. And in the 1950s, Yale did a study to see if brainstorms were just overhyped. And they again did a similar study to my alcohol experiment. They had 40 students, and they asked 40 students to solve some problems using brainstorm techniques, and 40 students to solve some problems just individually in the same amount of time. And they found that the ones who did this individually came up with more ideas, actually about twice as many ideas. They explored a lot broader territories. They came up with far more interesting and diverse ideas, and they came up with more practical ideas than the ones doing brainstorms. So on every metric, brainstorms were worse. And there's so many psychological studies that have been done. There's about 100 psychological studies that have been done since brainstorms have been around, looking at them and looking at the problems of them. And one of the problems is that they are there for, they work well for extroverts, but not for introverts. So we know that there's a bias within brainstorms. If you're introverted, you probably aren't going to throw an idea in that's half-baked. Whereas if you're extroverted, what they tend to do is the extroverted people actually tend to put in ideas that already exist. So you find that the mouthy ones in brainstorms are actually saying, oh, there's this great thing I've seen, and it says, and it's not a fresh idea. It's just people pointing at stuff they've seen. So there's far more plagiarism coming from the extroverts. The introverts have got far more valuable thinking, but they are not able to express it within a brainstorm scenario. And as much as I've got lots of energy when I'm doing this, I would actually, I did a study about, I did a test about a year ago and found that I actually come out as an introvert. I get the characters of an introvert, even although I'm this in-your-face idiot. You know, I still have this thing where I need space. I need time to think about things. I mull stuff over and feel stuff very vividly, which are more introverted properties. And I certainly, I don't chip up in brainstorms. They're not a natural thing for me. I don't believe that creativity is something you find more in extroverted people than introverted people. I actually think that what you find is that the creativity you get from introverted people tends to be more considered and more interesting, and it takes more time. It's just we've got a different way of processing and a different way of expressing. And I'm finding amazingly that the online workshops that I'm doing are far better for introverts because they can put stuff in comments and they don't have to put their hand up and have everyone looking at them. So I'm creating exercises that are far better for introverted people. And I think we need to do more of that. I think that that's a really important thing, is to allow for the people who are more quiet and more considered. Don't know
Love
if
it,
that answers
man.
your question there, Mark.
For sure. No, that was an amazing
Would you
response.
consider yourself to be an introvert?
Lately, yes, but
That's
I don't
just
know.
because you've been locked away. You're a
I think
hermit.
that's what it is. I don't know. There's certain things that give me a lot of energy, and that's things that I focus on. Being in large crowds of people now, but like teaching and like being the center, I love to be the center of attention whenever it's something very positive. When it's something very negative, I mean, I'm sure everybody says the same thing, right? Well, maybe, I don't know. But I don't know. I consider myself to be smack dab right in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. Both properties. Yeah, good place to be.
Any other
Fantastic.
questions?
Before I head on, anyone get any last
Being,
questions? Jonathan, you've
being,
got
yeah, being so new and not really having a position or a career in the arts, I feel like maybe you or Matt or maybe any one of the other three that I can see on video have. Do you have any suggestions on beginning public speaking or online training, or even like because I feel like I'm a little introverted and I hold a lot of fear. How do you pose smaller experiments to get used to it in chunks or manageable chunks?
That's interesting. So, what is it you want to get used to? You want to get used to sort of speaking publicly?
Well, yeah, speaking publicly and putting together things. I mean, online training or online workshops, consulting. That because I know I have life experience, but I don't give myself enough credit to say that my knowledge is valuable.
Yeah. Start small. I used to, when I started doing public speaking, I was terrified. And as part of the terror, I mean, I'm not just talking about fear, I'm talking about terror. My heart was like this. I was sweating bullets. You know, it was.
Just talking to you now.
Well, do you know that the reason I started putting myself forward for talks was because it scared the bejeepers out of me. And I needed to handle that. And in fact, when I was a musician, a session musician, back in the early 90s, I went on a radio show and with my band, and we were playing on a radio show, and I found that I had this stage fright that I'd never had before, being in a radio studio. And I fluffed up all my guitar solos, and I was mortified. I came out, and the band were like, "Dave, what on earth happened to you?" I don't know. I was just so nervous being on radio. So I ended up finding every opportunity I could to be on radio. I would put myself forward to be on radio and to be interviewed. Now, I ended up being a regular broadcaster on the BBC because I put myself forward so much, became really comfortable with it, that I would do poetry shows on BBC Radio 4. And I would write poems live on air with kids. It was terrifying. And then I became a co-presenter on a breakfast show. So I went from being absolutely terrified of radio to suddenly radio, I became comfortable with it. And then because I've been in radio so much, it started to become a career. So it's the same happened with public speaking, that I was terrified so much, and I put myself forward for things that were just outside my comfort zone. Don't go too far, just outside my comfort zone. And I built up over a few years that I went from putting myself forward to speaking at things. to then people inviting me to speak at things, to then inviting me with money, saying we will pay you to speak at things, to then over the last few years, it's been more than 50% of my income is public speaking. And that went from me being absolutely terrified with the quaver in my voice, you know, why don't we speak, you know, at the beginning, and visibly shaking and sweating, with my heart thumping, going from that to now, I'm comfortable enough. I've spoken in front of audiences of thousands. I still get nervous. And I think that the moment that I stop being nervous is the moment I need to stop. Because I think there's a difference between being nervous and not being confident. So being nervous is a natural physical state, and it's a state of energy. And what it is your body gives you too much energy. And it's why people say if you're getting nervous about something, go stamp it out. You know, like, come on, jump up and down, do something to get rid of that energy, because your body has too much energy. Now, confidence is different. It's a very different thing. I always get nervous, but I'm always confident. And I'm confident because I know my subject. So if you know your subject, you know what you're talking about, you know what the next slide is, you know that if someone asks you a question, you can answer it. That's confidence. That's different. Make sure that you build up your confidence, but don't worry about nerves. Nerves are fine. That's just energy, and you can deal with that. I hope that helps in some way. But Jonathan, I'd say start small. Put yourself forward for little 5-minute slots, 10-minute, until you up to like half hour, an hour. Just work your way up and put yourself forward as much as possible. And you're going to learn, and you're going to get better, and people will give you feedback. The other thing is always ask for feedback.
Yeah.
Ask people, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And if you don't ask, you don't hear.
Yeah.
So always ask people, how can I improve? What could I have done better? And I still do that. And I've been a professional public speaker for about 10 years. I still do that because I want to keep getting better. And if we don't ask for criticism, we don't get it. And if we don't get criticism, we don't improve.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a
That's
couple
all
other
right.
things
You're
that
welcome.
that
I look
add
forward
to
to
that.
seeing you speak somewhere soon, Jonathan.
Thank you.
I think that a lot of those same things that are how I feel as well. When I was in middle school, high school, and even most of college, I don't know, anytime that I had to give a speech or anything like that, like talk, nobody's comfortable in those situations because you're talking about something that you don't really care about. And I would just intentionally do bad because I thought I could hide behind those things. I was like, you know, I'm just not good at those things. So like I could do good at anything, but just wouldn't try at all when it came to doing presentations of any sort. And it wasn't um, until I decided that I wanted to start teaching where I was like, okay, now like I love the idea of teaching, but like, yeah, it's scary as shit, like walking in front of everybody. And I mean, I've been doing it for 5 years now, and yeah, definitely, like you said, Dave, like I still get nervous, and that's not thousands that I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with 20.
Yeah.
But it's about building up that confidence in a couple different ways. For me, it was in reading. I guess I told myself that like, okay, if I can read more books on this subject than anyone that I'm talking to, then I'll have all the confidence that I need. Like, not that it's necessarily going to make me smarter, but like at least I've kind of observed a lot of the different angles of a certain topic. So the first class that I taught was motion graphics, and I mean at that point I was already doing it for 7, 8 years, something like that, and I would still get called out by students. And I guess it was overcoming that fear right there where I'm like, oh God, they're going to think I'm like this hack and don't know anything. But whenever they started saying like, oh, couldn't we just do this? And I was like, yeah, actually you could. Like when you accept that some people know more than you do about a certain thing, like that gives you confidence too. So between that and just reading as much as I can, I don't know, that's kind of what works for me, but I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
I think that there was something brilliant. I've one reason I love Matt because he's a doer. He does things and he tries things out. And even at the beginning of lockdown, Matt did an experiment that I loved, and I'm pretty sure you've learned a lot from. When you did your teaching something every day for a month, what did you learn from that? I mean,
a couple things. One is that I can put together, I guess one is that I know a lot more things than I think I do. So before I even started that, it was whenever I started learning things, I'm like, man, okay, if I'm going to teach 30 things in 30 days, what 30 things am I going to choose? And you just start breaking things down into like the little things that you know that could actually help people. Like, no, I'm not saying that I'm an expert in any of those 30 topics. I'm saying that there's somebody that could probably learn something. So I learned that I could do it, but it took a lot of my time every single day. It took me probably an hour and a half, 2 hours to prepare for the next day that I would do a workshop for. And it was a really, really good way of learning very quickly what topics people care about. And there was several that nobody showed up for, and I already prepared for it. So I'm like, well, now here I am by myself. And I gave all this time to learning this thing, and I have nobody to teach it to. I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not a thing that I should pursue to try to teach anybody. But there were certain topics where I'm like, oh, I had no idea that people cared that much about that. So it was very interesting when it came to that.
yes, it's really interesting what people respond to, because I kind of find that we often have an idea. We think that this is what people will respond to. People will love this bit, and then they don't. They respond to something different. And to me, that's always a surprise. When I create digital tools or websites and things, I would think that this is how people will use it, and this is how they will respond to it. And I am proven wrong 100% of the time. And I love learning these things because it means that next time I'm better. So
I think I'm addicted to that idea of learning through doing. I mean, what we're doing right now, like Making Midwest as a digital event and not having a whole bunch of time to plan it, like it's scary, but at the same time, it's like, well, let's see what happens. I think you have to be able to step out of yourself and be an observer to what you're doing sometimes. And you just do things. And I mean, I'm sure you've done it before too, where like you've, planned classes or done these things and then nobody shows up and you're like, huh. So you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself, or you can just be like, well, what happened there? Like something happened that I need to try to avoid next time.
Yeah, I mean, I did some online stuff as well. So I did something about a month ago with a neuroscientist. We thought we'd do an experiment together. And we decided to do a course that would be an hour a day for 5 days. Have people joining us, and we would describe the neuroscience of creativity and how to improve, how to use your brain in a better way. Because it's a big area of interest for me is the neuroscience side. And we did that. We had, so the numbers were, we had 52 people who signed up to come along to the first day, which was free. Out of that, 22 people showed up. So that showed us that more than 50 people dropped off. 22 people showed up. And this was the first lesson that was free. The second step was to get people at the end of that to sign up to do the last 4 days for what was about $100 to do the 4 days. We had 3 people. Three people signed up. So the numbers just go down and down until 3 people. If it was 2 people, I had said that I didn't want to do it if it was just 2. But it was 3 people signed up. So it's like, okay, let's do it. And do you know what? It was brilliant. And we learned so much. And I learned how to use the software. I learned how to do stuff on Zoom in a way that was more seamless. I learned how to interact with people in the chat. It was a really intimate session. We had so many fantastic discussions. Ended up being better than it would have been I mean, we didn't get paid much, obviously, because 3 people turned up. There's 2 people teaching it. We're doing an hour a day for 5 days, and we earn $150 each. You know, it's not great money, is it? But it was learning, and it was this learning experience that was hugely, hugely valuable to me. So I'm so glad I did it, even though it wasn't for the money, obviously.
So do we have any other questions here? Mark, I saw you unmute your mic there at one point. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just mad that I missed your 30 days of teaching things.
Well, maybe someday.
When we were in college, I think I remember you saying you started doing motion graphics and animating as a teenager. Am I remembering that correctly?
I started doing some things. I was doing a lot of video stuff, but I wasn't really super into animation. But.
And so I remember you specifically, I don't know, just your technique and your presentation style was always unique. And like Dave said, appreciate being a doer. I've been in the corporate environment for almost 11 years now and have used it as an opportunity, as a channel for my creativity. Being a designer, animator at heart, but not being able to do that actually. So in what I do is data analysis and reporting, which a lot of people just think numbers or spreadsheets, but I really take time to put design elements to make things readable and easy to understand. And if I can make who uses what I create, if I can make their job easier and make it so they have to take less time to find that information, then I think I did my job well. And so I find opportunities to teach groups of people to either read what I'm creating or to go do things better to help make everyone else perform better and things like that. So and for John, I think I was a trainer for a while, and that was freaking terrifying, standing up in front of classes of new people or existing employees and telling them this is how you're going to do things. Scary. But what I did and what we were supposed to do is plan out what you need to get across, but always leave time for feedback and questions and things like that. Or if you're going to do a video, a recorded video that's just you talking and then you're going to share it, have a timeline planned out and notes and things like that. That way it just feels easier when you're presenting it, but also keeps you on track.
Yeah, I've actually, when I'm doing online videos, I've started using an auto cue more than I used to. So I used to just try and articulate stuff using bullet points that I'd remembered when I was doing stuff to camera. But because I film some of my LinkedIn learning courses from here in my bedroom here in London, I write my scripts and I deliver them to an auto cue, and it's so much faster. And Matt put up a video last week or the week before of just him awkward silence in front of a camera, and we were sort of laughing in the comments that, geez, that's like 80% of the videos that when I record a video, when I'm doing something, 80% of it is me going you know, it's just terrible. And it's the bit that nobody gets to see. And I think there's a beautiful honesty in what Matt shared. And it's good to see that there's other members of his fan club here here today.
Yeah, I think that doing videos, I mean, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for anybody to just sit there in front of a camera and like do these things. I think you have to be really just a crazy narcissist to just be like, here we go, I'm on camera again. Like, let's do this. That really
Yeah.
helps though. Like whenever you do, like if you did want to speak or teach or do anything like that, to make videos, because then you can just edit out all the mistakes that you have. And then everyone's like, oh, well, I just don't like listening to myself. Again, nobody likes listening to themselves, but if you edit your voice enough, you're just another person and you get comfortable with it. So I think that's another part of it, is just being comfortable with your own voice, being comfortable in your own skin, I
Yeah.
guess.
Do you find that you've kind of abstracted yourself I find when I'm editing myself, and I have to listen to my voice and I have to see my face for hours at a time when I'm editing all these videos, is that I become abstracted and it's no longer me. So I've got two versions of myself in my head. I've got this video version who is this other person who I'm highly critical of. And I've got this other version, which is the inner me. So there's the video me and the inner me. And I don't know if I've split my personality in some way and I'm damaged because of that. I might need to see a therapist. Matt, can I do a bit of promotion here?
Go for it.
Quick promotion. I want to promote an online shop that's called Ohio Workshop. And
Come on.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's beautiful. Matt does some stuff with his dad. These beautiful, beautiful products. And I'm a big fan. So I just, if you've not seen ohioworkshop.com, go along and see, because it is just, there's things there that I want in my house. So.
All right, are you done yet?
I'm done. That's an internet hug just for you, man.
Yeah. You know, the last thing that I'll say is, John, what you're saying, I really kind of sticks with me, because I feel like I was there, you know. So I don't know. It's really interesting to hear that perspective, and I don't know. You do the things that make you scared, but it's that feeling after you do something that scared the hell out of you. To me, that's the addicting part. And it's like, oh man, like that felt great. Like you just this rush that it's like, I mean, I don't do any drugs, but I I imagine that's like the best drug ever, is that feeling when you walk off stage, or the last student leaves the classroom, or you know, that kind of thing where you're like, I did it. But I don't, I mean, you have that feeling no matter how good or bad you did. So that's a really interesting thing. And I think that the super last thing they'll say is like, is being okay with being bad at first, and understanding that everybody wants you to succeed. Everybody wants you to do good. Nobody in the crowd wants you to do bad. I think that that's something that movies kind of make up. That's honestly, that's whenever I'm planning speakers for Making Midwest, I want a range of people. I like it whenever we have it's somebody's first time presenting. I like whenever, I don't like that they get nervous, but like I think it's important that we see people get nervous on stage. And every year we've had people that were super nervous, but everyone has done an amazing job. That those nerves that kind of bring people down to where they are, just kind of not being able to say their full words, that doesn't last the whole thing. That's only like the first maybe 4 or 5 minutes at worst. And then at a certain point, they just, well, I'm here, and that's the worst it's going to get right there. So they just become more comfortable, and you see people evolve as they do these things. And to me, that's one of the most special parts about any of this.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to make
absolutely.
this about me.
I think that the energy that you give out there and the feeling that you give out is what people tend to receive as well. So if you are super serious and stilted, then it makes the audience, it affects the audience, and you change the audience's emotions. But if you're happy and you've got energy, you lift the audience to a happier place. And it's that kind of thing, which is actually, it's really important to enjoy yourself. And I like to have fun with audiences. It's harder to do digitally, but it's still, I think being able to see all of your faces really helps. I can see when you're nodding. I can see when you're yawning. I can see when you've got your phone and you're swiping through Tinder. I mean, I saw. You know, it's just great being able to see that feedback. It's really it feeds you with energy. You've got this belief that we've got an energy tank here, and that when you are doing things like a creative project or you're doing speaking, you're feeding the energy tank. You're using that energy to put the stuff out there. And what happens when you get completers, this completers high from doing a little project, like for you, Jonathan, doing a talk, do a small talk, you'll get a completers high, and that fills your tank up again. And it gives you enough energy to go round the cycle again, to do something slightly more ambitious. And again, you'll get completers high. And it's this thing that it's really important that we understand why we feel demotivated creatively a lot of the time, and in these projects we do, is because we're not filling our tank up again. When we deplete the energy in our tank, it's hard to keep going. That's when we feel demotivated. So getting that energy back, which is why it's important to start small and start to work your way up. Because if you try to do something that's too far out with your abilities, you won't do it. You'll end up giving up before you get there. So it's just beyond your comfort, just beyond, and it will give you a buzz. It'll fill up your tank again, and you're ready to go next round. So it's just, I've seen this again and again with people trying to be too ambitious, and then falling, and then going, it didn't work for me, I can't do it. No, you were just too ambitious.
That's very good.
So I've kept everyone.
No, we're good. Any final thoughts? Anything quick here? 1 minute left, we'll say. All right, Dave, you wanna wrap this up for us? Anything else you want to say?
I just want to say thank you all very much. It's been lovely seeing your faces. I wish I could come and see you in Ohio. Maybe that's something. One day, I will do my best to come and do something in Ohio. I'm over in the States often enough anyway. Thank you all very much for your attention, for not dropping away and not doing too much Tindering when I've been talking. And yeah, thank you so much, Matt. You're a legend. I really appreciate you asking me to do this. Much appreciated.
No problem, man. Loved having you. All right, everyone. You're good to go. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.